Hi, my name's Andy. Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'll be talking about living in your car, and in particular solutions for storage of your gear when you're living in your car. Now, I've had a few comments on my channel. What do you do with all your stuff? And do you have a storage unit and things like that? Well, I'm going to be talking about that in this video. So I lived in my car for 3 years, and during that time I learned a few tips and tricks. One of the important things is just to keep your possessions as minimal as possible. It makes it easier to move around, just to continue to live your life as simply and straightforward as possible without a lot of stuff piling up around you. Now, what I did during that time was, first of all, the car was customized completely for living in. It had 2 seats in the front for myself and a passenger, but the rear seats were removed to allow me to lie down completely flat and have enough space to stretch out and be comfortable. So I would totally recommend that. If you can do that to your car, do it. Don't worry about like what will happen to resale value. Just assume you're not going to sell that car, that the car is going to just be for living in, because if you're doing this to save money, you almost certainly will save a lot of money by doing this. A station wagon or a van is going to be a much better car to live in than a small compact car, but it can be done, and I'll show you a few workarounds. If you've got a really small car, I'll show you a few things you can do in this video. So having somewhere to put your possessions, so you're not carrying them around in your car, is quite important. Now, there's a few different things that you can do, and a storage unit is probably the first thing that springs to mind. However, that's a very expensive solution. Now, I did have a storage unit during the 3 years that I lived in my car full time, and it's not a cheap option. It's like paying rent. You're basically paying rent for a space that you can put things in there, but you can't live in there. So as far as would I do that again? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it again, and the reason for that is that I don't really have anything that is valuable enough to warrant paying thousands of dollars a year to store it. Like, I'm not storing antiques or gold bars or such things. Basically, what I was storing in there was my bike and a few other personal items. Mostly it was a lot of stuff that I could have got rid of, and since then I have gotten rid of it. So it's a solution that you can figure out yourself what is important to you to keep and what you can get rid of. My rule is generally, if it's a tool, if it has like really like high utility value, then I will keep it. If it's going to cost me a lot of money to replace it, then I will keep it. And if it's something that's easily replaceable, like clothes or anything like that, all my clothes are second-hand anyway, so generally in the summer I just pare things down, and then in the winter go to a thrift store and buy some clothes just to keep warm. Now, one of the things that I did take advantage of was, during that time, I was working a day job where I had access to a locker. Now, I quickly realized that people in my work were not really using the lockers. I seemed to be one of the only people that used them, even though there was a whole locker room full of lockers. So I took over another locker. So I actually had enough room to store quite a bit of stuff. I could store a backpack in there, I could store clothes, and then because I had another locker as well, I would store my shampoo, toothpaste, a towel, everything that I would use when I would get ready for work. Of course, I was using the showers and the kitchen as well there at work. I was using the fridge at work to store things, and the freezer. You can use cupboard space at your work as well, and I did that. So I stored food in the cupboards at work in the office, and the way I did that was just to identify a space there that wasn't heavily used. And generally in workplaces there's a lot of like stuff being stored in cupboards that it never gets used. No one ever opens it. So I'd buy food from the supermarket when it was heavily discounted, like things like cans of beans and things like that I could eat for breakfast and lunch and I could prepare at work. if you're a member of a gym, you will also probably get access to lockers. Now some gyms allow you to store things in there with a padlock on the locker, and others also say if you do that, they will cut the lock off and remove anything from the locker if it's stored there overnight or for a long term. So just be aware of that before you go and store your personal items and things like laptops in a gym locker, because you might just lose it. Now, another thing that you can do if you are living in your car for storing things like clothes, and this probably works better for small items, is you can call on friends and you can ask your friends to perhaps store a bag of clothes for you, or family. Now I do that, and I do try and cut down on things that I'm storing with other people. And also, if you don't use the items regularly, then you probably don't need to store them anyway. So every 6 months or 12 months or so, I'll look at what I have in storage, and I'll look at the things wherever they are stored, and generally I throw away a lot of stuff. So let's look at some storage solutions in the car, because cars are actually pretty great with regard to storage. There's a lot of spaces that you can store stuff, and there's a lot of spaces that you can make storage in cars. You can store things in the glove box, and you can store stuff underneath the seats. If you take the seats out, then you can create a platform to sleep on, like I have done in my vehicle. And underneath that platform, there is space there where I do store things as well. And what I generally store in that space underneath the sleeping platform in my car is tools and some cooking gear if I need it. It's not a huge storage space, but it does work out pretty good. The other thing that I have done is in the back of my vehicle, I've left the storage compartments in there, and I use those to store various basic things, just small things. Generally, when I do store things in the vehicle, it's my old trusty way of storage, is that stuffing it into a black fabric shopping bag and stuffing it in the corner. That's exactly the way I store things when I'm on a cycle tour, is I put it in a black shopping bag and tie it to my bike. And I'm going to say black shopping bags are definitely a way to go if you're looking for a way to store especially soft items like clothing, blankets, and such things. Now let's have a look in the back of this car, because this car has been modified for living in. This is a compact car, but this is something that you can do if you have a similar sort of car and you have a couple of hours spare and some wood lying around, plywood, and some tools that you can use. So let's open up the back of the car and we'll have a look. So underneath this airline blanket here, I've got my folding bike. That stores very easily in the back of this car. This is the plywood constructed storage unit. It's one flat piece of plywood, and then under there you've got this box system. And this is just made of flat pieces of plywood as well, that are all interlocked together to create this grid system where you can easily store and sort any essential items you may need with you when you're living in your car. This is more of a deep storage solution. You can see there's some winter clothes there. That's a sleeping bag. That is a down sleeping bag for winter. There's some toilet paper in here, some water, a couple more airline blankets, and that's basically it. But you can store all kinds of stuff. Now I'll show you how all this goes together. The first thing we'll do is just remove this piece of plywood here. These slats just interlock with one another because they've got these slots cut out of them there, and then corresponding slots that are cut out of them here. So they just pull out and slot in. The middle one is larger, and then both of the outside edges look like that. So you can see you've got 3, 4, 5 pieces. and then you've got the top piece that lays on top of here. You can look at a full breakdown of how I put this together in my previous video. I'll put a link to it up here. You can go and watch that if you want to see the full breakdown for this. So that just creates a nice flat area for the plywood top to go in. So as you can see, when it's all packed up, it just looks like a normal car. So I hope that helped, guys, and I hope that you can see that even when you're trying to live in a very small car like this, you can come up with some storage solutions that will work for you. If you have any comments, please drop them down below. If you like this video and it helped you out, consider becoming a channel member for $1 a month, or you can make a one-off donation to the channel with Super Chat. Any donations are really greatly appreciated. My name's Andy. You've been watching Hobo Cyclist, and I'll see you in the next episode.